Hello, everyone, and welcome to another discussion video on the channel for the Black Hood crew. I am Darkness30XX, links above, and welcome. This week it is a doozy. If you've been watching the news, then you pretty much know what's going on this one, but we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a deep dive. Going to explain what's going on. You're going to hear a little bit about my personal views on the subject, and we're going to go into some of what people can do in response to this. So let's go ahead and dive in. Yes, the abortion ban in Texas literally passed on Wednesday. That was 2 days ago. So what is it? Simple as that. Texas law banning abortions after about 6 weeks. Now, you might be wondering yourself, why 6 weeks? Why not shorter, longer? Well, simple. At about 6 weeks, the fetus starts to display some sort of cardiac rhythm. That would be a heartbeat. That would be detectable on an ultrasound. So they decided that if it has a heartbeat, it's alive. And if it's alive, it deserves to live, regardless of the choices or the potential anything that might happen to the mother. So we're going to go right into it. Now, other states have passed something similar, but Texas is the first one to implement it. Now, by implementing it, it's not just, okay, they're going to barge into, doctor's offices and basically say, you can't perform abortions. It's basically, they're going to take it to the next step and actually have consequences against it. So you can actually see jail time if you are in any way, shape, or form involved in any abortions. Whether you're directly involved, as in you're the mom or the doctor performing it, or even indirectly, say a nurse in the office or someone who might have seen what was going on but decided not to say anything. So let's keep it going. Is this a complete ban? Well, like I said before, cardiac activity is detected in the embryo. This usually occurs around the 6th week, like I said earlier. This is very early. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at this point. Usually you don't get the first indications of being pregnant until you miss your period, which, can be a good indicator. Not always, but a fairly good indicator that, something is not causing your menstrual cycle to occur. And the only thing that really does that is pregnancy. So, it says right here that even if you were to detect it as early as possible, you would have about 2 weeks. So you see here, by the time a woman misses her period, it's been about 4 weeks. So she's already 4 weeks pregnant by the time she realizes she missed her period. Takes a test. So let's say immediately she takes a test, finds out she's pregnant. Oh no, 2 weeks. That's all she gets to make all kinds of preparations, or even to make the decision on how to manage the pregnancy and even where to begin to obtain an abortion. So, is it possible to still get one in Texas? Yes. However, the likelihood of it now, because of this ban, is going to be even less than it was before. Now, it's a good question here. Does the law make exceptions for pregnancies resulting from rape or incest, or to protect the life of the mother? That's in the case of, say, if the mother were to continue to stay pregnant or attempt to carry that pregnancy to term, it would have a negative effect on her life. Now, there are many medical conditions that people can suffer from that a pregnancy would exacerbate, thus causing further harm to the mother, and maybe even a premature death of the mother, which then in turn would lead to the death of the child, potential child in this case. However, in this case, no exceptions. So, at least when it comes to rape and incest. Now, if you're the type of monster to actually go that far to get it, you deserve a bullet in the head. Simple as that. This one, maybe not a bullet, but I would say a nice Louisville slugger right across the temple. Because, wrong. All types wrong. Now, in the case of health reasons, the exceptions are very narrow, allowing a termination only if the pregnancy would endanger the mother's life, like I said before, or lead to substantial, irreversible impairment of a major bodily function. What they mean by that is basically if carrying the child to term causes the mother to, say, slip into a coma, suffer some sort of mental distress, some sort of permanent impairment, loss of bodily functions, a paralyzation, either partially or fully. Like, that's what they're talking about. But how often does that really happen? Well, rare enough for them to be confident that most people seeking an abortion would not fall under that category, thus punishable by law. Now, doesn't Roe v. Wade guarantee a woman's right to an abortion? Now, you've heard this come up a million and one times. Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade. Well, let's get into Roe v. Wade. Now, in 1973, this was a court case in the U.S. Supreme Court in which they ruled that the Constitution protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. That means that the people, the government of the United States, whether it's on the national level or supposedly at the state level, we'll get into that, cannot directly be involved in keeping you from getting an abortion if you're a woman. It struck down many U.S. federal and abortion state laws that were already in place prior to this in 1973. Since then, we got national debates constantly going back and forth. It's pretty much where people go. Now, where it came from is this. The decision involved the case of Norma Mccorvey. Now you're wondering, who the hell is that? In the lawsuit, she went under the pseudonym, or also known as Jane Roe, the Roe in Roe v. Wade, who in 1969 was pregnant with her third child, which means she already had two prior to this carried to term. Now, she wanted an abortion, but she lived in, guess where? Texas. So, at the time, it was 100% illegal, which means in the state of Texas at that time in 1969, she could not get an abortion at all, unless it was to save her life. But after two children, she would have still been healthy, or healthy enough to carry the child to term and not have any issues. Now, she went to her lawyers, Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, who filed her lawsuit on her behalf in U.S. federal court against her local district attorney, Henry Wade. That's the Wade in Roe v. Wade. Alleging that Texas's abortion laws were unconstitutional. So that means they were contesting that the state law denying her access to an abortion went against her constitutional right. That's the national law, her constitutional right to have an abortion. Now, where was I? A 3-judge panel, the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Texas, heard the case and ruled in her favor. So already on a district level in Texas, they ruled in her favor. Texas then appealed this ruling directly to the Supreme Court, and that's how it got to there. Had they just let it be, things would have been hunky-dory. But they decided to push the issue, and then it went up to the highest court in the land. That's the Supreme Court of the United States of America. January of 73, the court issued a 7-2 decision. That's not even split. That's 7-2. Ruling that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment provides a right to privacy that protects a woman's right to choose whether or not to have an abortion. But it also ruled that this right is not absolute and must be balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and protecting prenatal life. Now, this is where we're going to get into how I feel about this particular subject. A woman's right to choose is and should always be none of anybody else's goddamn business. Simple as that. Unless you are the mom, her doctor, or even the sperm donor or potential father. Unless you're one of those 3 people, a particular woman's right, her choice to have a child, it's none of your damn business. Simple as that. You know how I know it's none of my business? 1, I'm not directly involved. I'm not a doctor. Obviously, I'm not a pregnant woman. That'd be weird. And 3, I'm not a potential father. Now, how I know I'm not that 3rd one? I've had a vasectomy. You can't have any more kids. Done deal. So, in the case of a woman's right to choose, the same way nobody else on earth can tell you what to do with your body, shouldn't tell somebody else's, even if you claim it's against your belief. The problem is, the second you start to push your beliefs on another person, now we're getting into some really dangerous territory. A tantamount to, say, I don't know, some particular group of people recently took over a country. We just let them steamroll through. You know, you remember. Kind of happened last week. Yeah. They're the same way, except not only are they banning abortion in their country indefinitely, but they're also pushing for the teaching of religion in schools. So, Texas has now gone the way of the Taliban. That's right, I said it. Texas legislator is now tantamount to the Taliban. Yeah, they may not be out there pushing religion in schools, although I'm pretty sure some of them would. Maybe they're not out there, you know, killing regular civilians in order to push an agenda. But at the same time, the thought process behind a lot of this is about control. Telling a woman she cannot have an abortion is a form of control, especially when most of the people involved are a bunch of nasty, old, decrepit men. Not medical professionals, not even women, just men. So again, as a man, I have no right to tell anybody what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Simple as that. Back to the issue at hand. So now, the Texas law bars state officials from actually enforcing it, a design intended to make it difficult to challenge in courts. So, what ends up happening is this. Instead of someone, say, calling 911 and saying, hey, I know of somebody who had an abortion. Officially, cops are going to be like, nothing we can do. But It instead empowers private citizens to sue anyone who performs an abortion or aids and abets. That means anybody else involved, up to and including the mother. Plaintiffs who have no connection to the patient, that means just a random person on the street, can sue the patient and or the clinic and recover legal fees, as well as earn $10,000 from the state if they win. So what this basically does, it gives every citizen in the state of Texas the ability to sue an abortion clinic or anybody performing one. And then when it's taken to court, the judges are now more inclined to rule in favor of the plaintiffs against the defendants. So not only could a person, regular person off the street, win a court case against somebody they don't know, all they have to do is just say, hey, that person had an abortion, I'm suing you. They're almost guaranteed to win, and then the judge can then pass whatever judgment they'd like, which can and will most likely include some sort of jail time. Yeah. Welcome to America. So, other states have passed similar laws against, again, doing the whole 6 weeks waiting for cardiac rhythm, heartbeat in the fetus, heartbeat laws as they're called. You got Georgia, Mississippi, Kentucky, and Ohio. Now, I'm not surprised that these states are on that list. I am surprised, however, that Florida is not. Thankfully, but still surprised. Now, the 6 weeks is actually 18 weeks earlier set by the standard Roe v. Wade. So we're talking about originally it was set at 24 weeks. So you had from the approximate date of conception to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Nice long time. We're talking about a fair amount of time before you can have an abortion, before it became illegal to have one. It just got cut down to a month and a half. And again, like we stated before, you can, as a woman, normally your first indicator of being pregnant is that missed menstrual cycle, your period. By then you would already be 4 weeks pregnant. So what? The immediate next day, like, oh, my period didn't come on a Wednesday. Thursday, I'm going to take a pregnancy test. No. Some women know their cycles. Sometimes they're early, sometimes they're late, but they usually fall around a certain time. So what if, say, oh, might be a little late, you wait another week. Now you're at 5 weeks. Still doesn't come, then you perform a pregnancy test. Oh, damn, I'm pregnant. So now you have a week to come to terms with the fact that you're pregnant, make any kind of personal decisions before making any kind of medical decisions when it comes to the pregnancy. In a week. In Texas. This is not good. Now, it says here that abortion providers in Texas estimate that 85% of patients seeking abortion are at least 6 weeks pregnant. So that means by the new law, they've already passed that point, the legal point, and they would now be denied care under the new law. So who is most affected? There are 7 million women, approximately, of childbearing age in Texas. And the law would make it more difficult for all of them to obtain abortions in the state of Texas. Now, if you ever seen a map, Texas is huge. Most of that land is open farm, not necessarily populated. Most of the population is in major cities, Dallas, Houston. You have the occasional town, you know, along major highways and things of that nature, but most people are in cities. So what about those people out in the middle of nowhere? Well, screwed, basically. So right here, among them, teenagers who often don't realize they're pregnant until later in a pregnancy. We're talking about that window between 6 and 24 weeks. Low income people who need to find about $550 to cover an abortion. And most importantly, people of color. We're talking about African American, Black, Asians, and undocumented immigrants, Hispanics, people south of the border, or even immigrants from other countries, you know, not necessarily directly connected to North America. You know, you got these people who don't know or have the means to even get $550 for an abortion. That's for each one. 70% of abortions in 2019 were provided to women of color. Texas requires minors to obtain permission from a parent or guardian to gain access to abortion care, which means if you're under the age of 18 and you get pregnant, your mom or dad has to sign off on it happening. Now, what if mom and dad are like, nope, now you're screwed. Some minors must go to a court to do so, which just adds to the time, adds to the delay, thus crossing now that 6-week limit, originally the 24. But again, court proceedings take forever and 3 days. So even under just Roe v. Wade, the process that people had to go through in Texas would have still forced that time to be over. So undocumented women cannot easily travel around the state to get access to care because they're illegal. So what ends up happening is they're noticed, they're pulled over, they're deported. So what ends up happening, that a pregnancy, although normally not life-threatening, thus becomes one, even without the added issues of chronic illnesses. So what do? Well, in Texas, they created a website that you can go to. Now, the website is a whistleblower type website. You can Google it, and it basically gives you a blank form in which you can report an abortion taking place, or an abortion that has already taken place. And you would basically fill it in, when it occurred, where it occurred based on city, state, zip code. The site is, from what I've learned recently, crashed a half dozen times already because it's currently being inundated by people trying to make the website inaccessible to people who would use it for its intended purpose. So, like myself, crash the site. Do everything you can. Send in as many false claims, false information. Do it. Show them that not only is this wrong on many levels, but to even have that as an option is downright despicable. Now, there are other people who are fighting against this in their own way. One such, these guys. That's right. The Satanic Temple in Texas. Now, if you have no idea who these people are, I say you should look them up. Because even though they have this name, this iconography, symbolism, you are not going to find a more upstanding, welcoming, loving, just downright wholesome group of people than Satanists. And the reason why is simple. They are a religion that is anti-religion. Everything that Christianity stands for. They're pretty much, they're almost against all of the negative aspects of religion. Everything that your faith pushes as a negative, they see as a positive. Or they just completely denounce it and in turn create something positive out of it. Like Satanists fully accept people of the LGBTQ plus community willingly, wholeheartedly, with open arms. So where this particular group of people would be shunned away or outright, just viewed as anything less than human, they're welcomed as equals here. Now we're going to get into specifically what this has to do with the Texas abortion law. Well, it's pretty simple. The Satanic Temple has filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court in the Southern District of Texas Houston Division, alleging that certain state mandatory abortion restrictions violate the TST, that's the Satanic Temple, members' religious beliefs. This is the case right here. On behalf of TST member Ann Doe, in quotes because that's not her actual name, TST is suing the state of Texas for imposing medically unnecessary abortion regulations, including a sonogram, which, yes, they did make that mandatory. If you are a pregnant person seeking an abortion and you fall within the time frame, they would have forced you to have a sonogram, thus forcing you to watch or to see this thing growing inside you. A forced decision to reject the opportunity of seeing the sonogram results. So you couldn't say no. They just forced it on you. The forced listening to a narrative of the sonogram results just means somebody would read the results out to you. And again, you had to sit there and take it. And a mandatory waiting period between the sonogram and abortion. So like the waiting period between ordering and receiving a gun, even in the state of Texas, you had to sit there and wait, thus pushing that legal limit closer and closer. Now that limit being 6 weeks. So this person performed the abortion ritual, which a ceremonial affirmation of self-worth and bodily autonomy that integrates the abortive process. In layman's terms, they ceremoniously declared themselves an individual with rights up to and including everything they can do to themselves, including abortion. And because it's a religious right under the Satanic Temple, their suing of the state of Texas is basically put as the law is a form of rejection to my faith, as an affront to my faith. The Satanic Temple is saying my faith dictates your law is unconstitutional because it also violates the freedom of religion. So, yeah, they're going that far with this one. Prior to following the lawsuit, their attorney sent a letter to Texas Health and Human Services Commission, which demanded an exception from the abortion restrictions on behalf of Ann Doe, stating, quote, the abortion ritual, 1, requires an abortion, and 2, affirms her religious subscription to TST's third and fifth tenets. But before Ms. Doe can get her abortion and therefore participate in the abortion ritual, the government has required that she get a sonogram. These requirements substantially interfere with Ms. Doe's religious beliefs and practices for 2 reasons. First, the requirements are a precondition to Ms. Doe's ability to participate in a religious ceremony. It is a substantial interference per se for the state to place a regulatory hurdle, one that costs money, in front of a religious exercise. The state might as well tax and regulate mass. Yes. So they're basically saying that interfering in her ability to obtain an abortion would be the same as the state telling someone they can't pray. They cannot hang a cross in their home. They can't go to church. They can't attend mass. Hence the wording here. Yeah, you see where this is going. So a spokesperson for the temple, Lucian Greaves, says, I am sure Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who famously spends a good deal of his time composing press releases about religious liberty issues in other states, will be proud to see that Texas's robust religious liberty laws, which he so vociferously, I'm pretty sure I butchered that, champions, will prevent future abortion rituals from being interrupted by superfluous government restrictions meant only to shame and harass those seeking an abortion. Now, why in God's name did this matter? Simple. This lawsuit directly challenges restrictive abortion laws that violate the Satanic Temple's religious beliefs in a state that champions religious liberty through their implementation of Texas's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This case serves as the basis for establishing our claims to religious exemptions from abortion restrictions in states across the nation. We expect that Texas will respect our claims to religious liberty and permit Satanists their religious exemptions from medically unnecessary and unscientific abortion procedures that are designed to guilt and shame patients when receiving reproductive care. Yeah. So, if you are a woman in Texas who feels this new law is heinous, disgusting, downright controlling, go ahead and have a chat with these folks. And maybe Satan is the way to go. Now, I personally am not a religious person. Not by any means. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in none of that garbage. I'm permanently anti-faith, anti-church, what's the word? I forgot the wording now. Organized religion. That's the one. I'm against all of that. If you have faith, have your faith. Believe what you're going to believe. Don't come to me with it. Just don't. I prefer logic. I prefer reason. All of this is against everything I believe in. But again, as somebody with my belief system, I can't tell someone else what they can and can't do with their body. The same way I can't tell somebody that they can't get abortion, it's the same reason I can't tell somebody they can't believe something. Absolutely. Believe what you're going to believe. But once you start pushing that belief onto someone else, even forcefully, that's where you start running into the problems. And problems that you don't want to have. Now, in the wording, as it states, that the law in Texas is by the legal wording, not something based in faith. It wasn't something that, oh, we're passing it because we're a Christian state or a Christian nation, which we're not to begin with. The United States is not a Christian nation. It is a nation open to all. Now, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can for yourself. But given the tools available, you can help those who, like the rest of us, just want to live their lives peacefully. They want to live their lives free from oppression, whether it be from a group, a state legislator, or even the United States government, or any government for that matter, because this is also a global issue. The fact that this has gone as far as it has in a supposedly free country, it's scary for many different reasons, but in this particular case, it's scary for women simply because you have people, mostly men, making decisions about what you can and cannot do with your body. As a man, I cannot apologize because I don't know these guys. But at the same time, I feel for you because I wouldn't want someone coming into my home or me being in a doctor's office telling me that I can't be there, that I can't do what I'm there to do. It would be tantamount of, me being a doctor's office and, telling them I want a particular medication or that I need a particular medication. And then some yahoo from the government comes storming in telling me, hey, you can't give him that. That's against the law. But he needs it. Too bad. That's what this is. This is basically a form of control. For women specifically. In the state of Texas, in those other 4 states, even though they don't really enforce it the way that they would want, it's now become an issue where, again, you have a government trying to supersede its own constitution in order to push a form of control on its citizens. And again, you don't see laws like this against men. You don't. There's no law that are saying, you can't, donate sperm. Nothing like that. You can't, cut and run. You can't get somebody pregnant and then disappear from their life. Can't do that. But, as it stands right now, men in general, I don't want to say too specifically, but in general, men tend to have a lot of power, at least when it comes from a legal standpoint. There are other issues, feminist ideas, feminist talking points when it comes to, pay wage gap and, equality and all that stuff, right? But this issue in particular is heinous, because this is a direct involvement. Someone coming to you and saying, you cannot have this procedure done. Even if the person, the other half, is either a direct family relative, say dad, brother, cousin, or just some random idiot off the street who decided to take advantage of you. Why would you want to keep something like that? The mental stress, the emotional stress, you know, it would cause all types of issues with it. If a woman had to carry a child, a product of a rape or a product of incest, to term, then have to live the rest of their lives looking at this poor child in the face, never really caring for them or wanting to care for them or even loving them because of where they came from, because of what they're a product of. You really want to put a child through something like that, an innocent child? I'd rather they get the abortion and just be done with it. Save everybody the heartache. Women already get crapped on enough for even thinking about getting an abortion. You know, how many people in this day and age, not just here, but everywhere, you know, go through the struggle of bringing a child into this world to then dump them on a foster care system that's going to fail them almost 100% of the time. Dump them on relatives, you know, never be around for them, never really care, never really love them. Come on, you know. At least with something like this, you know, or the anti-this law, you know, at least there was a choice. Like, hey, I'm not financially ready to have a child. I'm not, you know, old enough. I'm not where I need to be able to take care of a child. You know, at least they had that choice. Now, at least in the state of Texas, that choice is almost all but taken from them. And then here comes to the crazy part too. The same people now who have been fighting for years, my body, my choice. Where do you also hear that now? You hear it from people who are refusing masks and vaccines during a pandemic. My body, my choice. You cannot mandate masks. You cannot mandate vaccines. But to hell with the pregnant women who want an abortion. Not their body, not their choice. The amount of hypocrisy that is going on in this country, specifically from the conservative right. I'm not saying that there's people that are liberal on the left who have their hands clean either. But more often than not, hypocrites almost always take the form of a conservative. Maybe not always a Republican, you know, based on political party, but the conservative ideas being pushed forth by some people are hypocritical. Because, and I can tell you this with almost certainty, the law in place in Texas is specifically aimed at minorities. Hispanic, Black, African American, immigrants, people who don't have the means, who don't have the access. But take the flip side of that and you have somebody from an affluent family, somebody of status, God forbid one of their girls gets pregnant. Daddy, I can't have this baby. It's going to ruin my life. It's going to ruin our family image. Don't worry, baby. I know somebody. They'll fly that child to another state, or hell, even another country. Sign him in under an alias. Get him that abortion. Fly him on back like it never happened. You know, like going down the store to get a gallon of milk. Like, hey, let's just go ahead and cross state lines, cross a country border, and get that abortion, come right on back like it never happened. But God forbid you're somebody on the bottom, working day to day, just trying to live your life peacefully, free from this kind of oppression. You don't have that kind of means. The ability to travel, especially now during a pandemic. You're going to, jump on an airplane, go to, another faraway state where abortion is, legal up to 24 weeks via Roe v. Wade, or to just go in another country where, it's, you can do it, even more than 24 weeks. No, you can't do that. Nobody has that kind of money. So then what do you do? What are you supposed to do? Well, as it stands, there's nothing that can be done except to pick and choose your battles. Fight where you can fight. Fight where you know you can win. And if need be, there's always the Satanic Temple. Just tell them, hey, they're infringing on my rights to religious liberty by keeping me from getting an abortion. Yeah. It's an option. It would involve converting. But I would assume, given the circumstances, that the temple would be very lenient when it comes to the conversion process, or even the amount of time required to convert. So, as we stand, this country, like I said last week, if you saw my Among Us stream, is basically on fire. And this right now is just gasoline into an open flame. It's unnecessary. It's only going to hurt the people who don't deserve it, while the people at the top can continue to do whatever they want. Which they always have, if you really think about it. So, yeah. So here we sit. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Google is your friend. There's plenty more information out there to learn about this issue and